Welcome to Barbara's Bulletin, the podcast that brings you the most up-to-date and in-depth analysis of current events from around the world. I'm your host, Barbara, and we're glad you're joining us today. We're starting off with a story that's making headlines globally: the escalating tensions between the United States and Brazil. In a move that's being seen as a significant escalation, U.S. President Donald Trump has imposed a 50% tariff on Brazilian imports, citing concerns over Brazil's policies and the criminal prosecution of former President Jair Bolsonaro. According to reports, Trump had threatened these tariffs in a letter to Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva earlier this month. The White House has stated that Brazil's judiciary has attempted to coerce social media companies and block their users, although it didn't specify which companies were involved. It's worth noting that the U.S. actually ran a trade surplus of $6.8 billion with Brazil last year, which might seem counterintuitive given the tariffs imposed by Trump. However, the administration is using a 1977 law to justify the move, claiming that Brazil's policies constitute an economic emergency. This development has been met with swift reaction from Brazil, with President Lula da Silva leaving an event early to address the situation and defend the sovereignty of the Brazilian people. The tariffs are set to go into effect in 7 days, although some products such as civil aircraft, aluminum and energy products will be exempt. In a related move, the U.S. Treasury Department has also announced sanctions on Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes over alleged suppression of freedom of expression and his role in overseeing the criminal case against former President Bolsonaro. As we analyze this story, it's clear that there are complex geopolitical dynamics at play. While some might see Trump's move as a bold statement of American economic interests, others might view it as an overreach, or even an attempt to influence the outcome of Brazil's internal affairs. We'll continue to monitor this situation and provide you with updates as more information becomes available. For now, it's clear that the relationship between the U.S. and Brazil has taken a significant turn, with potential implications for global trade and diplomacy. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. I'm your host, Barbara, and we're glad you're joining us again for this middle segment of our show. Today, we're taking a closer look at a developing story in the Middle East, where Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has stepped up his calls for Hezbollah to disarm. This issue is complex and multifaceted, with deep roots in the region's history and politics. To provide some context, Hezbollah emerged as a powerful force in Lebanon after the country's civil war, and its arsenal has long been a point of contention. While some see the group as a necessary defense against Israeli aggression, others view it as a threat to the stability of the Lebanese state. President Aoun's recent comments reflect the growing pressure on Hezbollah to disarm, with Washington playing a significant role in these efforts. The U.S. has been pushing Lebanon to commit to disarming Hezbollah before talks can resume on halting Israeli military operations in the country. This demand is part of a broader effort to establish a monopoly on weapons in the hands of the Lebanese army and security forces. Hezbollah, however, has refused to disarm, arguing that such a move would only serve Israel's interests. The group's leader, Sheikh Naim Qassem, has stated that calls for disarmament are merely pretexts for Israeli aggression. This stance is rooted in the group's historical role as a resistance force against Israeli occupation and its belief that it needs to maintain its military capabilities to protect Lebanon. The situation is further complicated by the aftermath of last year's war between Hezbollah and Israel, which resulted in significant losses for the group. Despite this, Hezbollah remains a powerful player in Lebanese politics, and its disarmament would require a fundamental shift in the country's balance of power. As we consider this story, it's essential to acknowledge the diverse perspectives at play. Some Lebanese citizens see Hezbollah as a heroic resistance movement, while others view it as a destabilizing force that undermines the state. Similarly, international actors like the US and Israel have their own interests and motivations in the region. To move forward, Lebanon has proposed a counteroffer to the US roadmap for disarmament, which includes an immediate halt to Israeli attacks, the withdrawal of Israeli troops from positions held in the south, and the establishment of state control over all Lebanese territory. The proposal also seeks $1 billion annually for 10 years to support the army and security forces, as well as plans for an international conference to support reconstruction efforts. As we continue to follow this story, it's crucial to remain informed and nuanced in our understanding. The path forward will likely be complex and challenging, requiring careful diplomacy and a deep understanding of the historical and political context. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. As we wrap up today's show, I want to bring your attention to a couple of important stories that highlight the ongoing struggles of workers in various industries. Firstly, let's take a look at the situation with FedEx Canada, where the company is attempting to strip union rights from immigrant workers. According to reports, the Teamsters have been fighting for years to bring union representation to FedEx workers, who earn approximately $3 less per hour than their counterparts at UPS and Purolator. Moreover, these workers are required to contribute 3% of their wages to their pensions, unlike workers at other companies whose pensions are fully employer-funded. I want to emphasize that this is a complex issue with valid points on both sides. On one hand, the Teamsters argue that all workers, regardless of their background or birthplace, deserve equal wages, protections, and respect. On the other hand, FedEx may have its own set of challenges and constraints that need to be taken into account. Moving on to another story, outside workers for the Cape Breton regional municipality have voted overwhelmingly in favor of strike action, with 96% of votes supporting possible job action. The workers, represented by Local 759 of the Canadian Union of Public Employees, are seeking improvements to leave benefits, competitive wage increases, and better protections against undermining seniority. Again, this is a multifaceted issue that requires careful consideration of various factors. While the workers have valid concerns about their working conditions and compensation, the municipality may also face budgetary constraints and other challenges that need to be addressed. As we conclude today's show, I want to encourage all our listeners to stay informed and engaged on these important issues. Remember that fair labor practices and worker rights are essential for building a strong and equitable society. By staying informed and supporting workers' rights, we can work towards creating a more just and prosperous world for everyone. That's all for today's Barbara's Bulletin. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay engaged.